Government plans to amend law to plug loophole in vaccine exemption certificates. Rishi Sunak is now the new British Prime Minister. Liz Truss defends her policies in final speech as UK leader. Hello and welcome to TVB News. After losing a court case last week on whether the government has the right to invalidate 20,000 plus dubious COVID-19 vaccine exemption certificates, the administration has decided to amend legislation to address the issue. The change will give the Secretary for Health powers to invalidate COVID-19 vaccination exemption certificates. Christy Khan reports.
In a statement released this afternoon, the government said it would not appeal last week's court ruling on COVID-19 vaccine exemption certificates. However, an amendment on the current Prevention and Control Disease Ordinance will be submitted to the Legislative Council tomorrow. The new legislation, giving the Secretary for Health powers to invalidate suspicious COVID-19 vaccination exemption certificates, is set to take effect on the same day. The High Court earlier had ruled in favor of Ko Chak-Kin's judicial review to bar the government from revoking more than 20,000 COVID jab exemption certificates issued by 7 doctors. Earlier today, Chief Executive John Lee commented on the issue ahead of the weekly Executive Council meeting.
The government has the duty to ensure there is efficient and effective protection of public health. For any acts that may be in violation of the law or professional conduct, the government will pursue the legal liabilities of the parties concerned.
Lee added that the government would adhere to the law. In response to Hong Kong's plunging stock markets yesterday, Lee said the city is capable of dealing with contingencies.
Government is very confident that the systems we have in Hong Kong is effective, resilient, and will be monitoring the situation so that we will ensure market order and market transactions will go on in accordance with what we expect.
He added that the government would make sure market activities would continue in an orderly manner. Christy Khan, TVB News.
With parts of the city at risk from melioidosis infections, microbiologist Professor Yuen Kwok Young suggested authorities increase the amount of chlorine in drinking water and use ultraviolet light for disinfection at service reservoirs. This morning, Yuen inspected service reservoirs in Shek Kip Mei and Butterfly Valley with health officials. Yuen said the source of infections has not yet been identified, but he recommended the Water Supplies Department consider raising the level of chlorine to 1.2 parts per million from the current level of 1 part per million. Additionally, he suggested authorities use ultraviolet light for disinfecting drinking water. So far, the city has reported 34 melioidosis cases, with 7 people succumbing to the disease. Meanwhile, Hong Kong reported 5,221 new COVID infections today, 454 of which were imported. 10 more COVID patients have died. Last week's policy address by Chief Executive John Lee noted the administration must improve the management of civil servants. That includes updating the Civil Service Code. Civil Service Chief Ingrid Yeung said the principle of being politically neutral should be replaced with being impartial. Sharon Tang reports.
Political neutrality of the civil service has a very important built-in principle, which is that the civil service must be loyal to the government of the day.
20 years on, the Civil Service Bureau is about to make a change to the Civil Service Code.
We no longer use this term anymore. We will explain
that civil servants have to be impartial. They should not be clouded by their own political inclination. Political neutrality cannot be used as an excuse to not execute the government's duties.
In his policy address, the CE also proposed strengthening the award and punishment system, including rolling out the Chief Executive Award for exemplary performance. That prompted concerns from lawmakers.
If they do more, they do more wrong and so on. I mean, this kind of mentality that they have. Now, how can we change this culture?
For this new scheme, I believe there is punishment system as well. And they have to be subject to a demerit system, apparently. As long as an individual or a team performs well, then we'll acclaim them. If there are civil servants who violate the regulations, then we have punishment system in place.
Ingrid Young said that between 2017 and 2021, there were 17 civil servants who had underperformed and relevant procedures have begun. Among them, 10 of them continuously performed poorly and had to leave the government. 3 others who have made improvements can stay. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Next, media founder Jimmy Lai was found guilty of fraud today, as was his former administrative director, Wong Wai-kung. That's after they were charged with violating the terms of the lease for the headquarters of Apple Daily in Chung Kwan-o. Lai, who is currently serving jail sentences, and Wong both appeared in court today. The pair were accused of hiding from the landlord, Science Park. Lai's consulting firm was operating inside the Next Media building. The site was only intended to be used for publishing newspapers and magazines. The defense counsel argued that the consulting company only used up 0.16% of the building's space. The court said it doesn't matter how much space it occupied and slammed the pair for deliberately hiding the facts. Mitigation and sentencing will take place on the 24th of next month. Overseas, former UK Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak has officially become British Prime Minister after being asked to form a government by King Charles III at Buckingham Palace. Following his appointment by the monarch, Sunak returned to No. 10 Downing Street, where he gave his first speech as Prime Minister.
I fully appreciate how hard things are. And I understand too that I have work to do to restore trust after all that has happened. All I can say is that I am not daunted. I know the high office I have accepted, and I hope to live up to its demands.
Sunak is Britain's first leader of color and third prime minister this year. He will face a string of tough challenges, including facilitating a revival in the fortunes of the UK's struggling economy. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Rishi Sunak will replace Liz Truss as British Prime Minister, who resigned last week following just 45 chaotic days in office, during which time her budget proposals sparked financial market turmoil. This ultimately led to her ousting. This morning, she chaired her last cabinet meeting in Downing Street before leaving office.
From my time as Prime Minister, I am more convinced than ever that we need to be bold and confront the challenges that we face. And I wish Rishi Sunak every success. Our country continues to battle through a storm. But I believe in Britain. I believe in the British people. And I know that brighter days lie ahead.
Sunak is the UK's first Prime Minister of colour and first Hindu leader. He was born in 1980 in Southampton on the south coast of England to parents of Indian descent. Sunak's father was a family doctor and mother a pharmacist. He has described how he studied at Winchester College, one of Britain's most expensive and exclusive boarding schools, after his parents worked hard to save money for tuition fees. Sunak later studied politics, philosophy and economics at Oxford University, then received an MBA at Stanford University in the US. He went on to work for the investment bank Goldman Sachs as a hedge fund manager and lived in the US. During his time in the States, he met his wife Akshata, whose father is Indian billionaire N.R. Narayana Murthy, founder of IT giant Infosys. Returning to Britain, Sunak's political career began when he was elected to Parliament for the safe Conservative seat of Richmond in Yorkshire in 2015. His standing within the Conservative Party rose in the wake of Brexit, which he had supported. Sunak then served in several junior ministerial posts before being appointed as Chancellor of the Exchequer by former Prime Minister Boris Johnson in 2020. He garnered praise for implementing financial support programs for people in the UK who had lost their jobs as a result of the COVID outbreak. Still, Sunak remains controversial. Some backers of Boris Johnson accused him of treachery earlier this year when he resigned from the cabinet of the former Prime Minister, which contributed to his downfall. Others in the party and public believe he is too wealthy to understand the UK's day-to-day economic challenges. Dan Orell, TVB News.
In India, many felt a sense of pride that one of their own has become the leader of a country that was once their colonial ruler. U.S. President Joe Biden, meanwhile, said Sunak's rise was pretty astounding. Beijing said cultivating and advancing strong bilateral ties is a shared responsibility for China and the UK. Nazvi Karim has more.
They were once ruled by Britain. Now, one of them rules Britain. Indians were largely happy that Rishi Sunak became Britain's first Prime Minister of South Asian heritage. In the capital, Delhi, this businessman said if a person with Indian heritage becomes the Prime Minister of Britain, the same Britain which ruled us for so many years, if one of ours becomes Prime Minister, then this is a moment of pride for the whole of India.
I'm naturally very proud of it. Yeah, we are very proud about it.
Not all Indians, though, felt it was something to be proud of. This man said Southampton-born Sunak has Indian roots, but he is not Indian. He was born elsewhere, worked elsewhere, he says. I don't think it will make a difference to me. US President Joe Biden said Sunak's achievement was a groundbreaking milestone.
As my brother would say, go figure. Pretty astounding. A groundbreaking milestone, and it matters. It matters.
The Japanese government said today it would cooperate closely with Sunak's administration. Hirokazu Matsuno, the Japanese chief cabinet secretary, said the UK is Japan's global strategic partner, and they would work together for a free and open Indo-Pacific and their response to Russia's aggression in Ukraine. In Britain, Sunak's rise was a source of frustration for the opposition Labour Party, which wants a general election.
What we've seen played out is a coronation here and not an actual election where people have a mandate to serve the British people of this country. You know, Rishi Sunak was rejected by his own party membership only weeks ago. The people of this country now deserve us to go to the electorate to put our policies forward about how we're going to deal with this cost of living crisis that the Conservative...
Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Coming up after the break, John Lee says Hong Kong will allow overseas talents to realize their dreams. Shooting in St. Louis in the U.S. left at least 3 people dead. The return of Wine and Dine, but with the outdoor events missing. Welcome back to TVB News. Starting next year, newly appointed teachers will have to pass tests on the Basic Law and the National Security Law. Some deregistered teachers may get their license back unless they were ousted on ethical grounds. Jackie Lynn reports.
In school year 2023-24, newly hired teachers will face a new set of guidelines on professional conduct. In an RTHK radio program, Secretary for Education Christine Choi-Yook-Lin says the drafted guidelines will be ironed out by the end of this year. The Education Bureau mandates the new educators to pass exam on the Basic Law and the National Security Law in the new school year. They have to get at least half of the answers correct from the 20 multiple choice questions in the 30-minute test. The requirement encompasses those serving in direct subsidy scheme schools and even kindergarten teachers. Choi says it's important for teaching professionals to have a basic knowledge of the city's constitution, even though they may not offer such classes to students. The education chief also admits the brain drain in the education sector has been more serious over the past 2 years. The bureau will beef up training quotas for subjects facing more dire manpower crunch. And under the new guidelines, deregistered teachers may be given a second chance. They have to prove they improved in their professional conduct around 3 years after they were stripped of their license. But Choi said it will be more difficult for those ousted over ethics issues. The guidelines will also state clearly the criteria of a fit and proper teacher who should stick to the teaching goals and not add incorrect values in their teaching. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee said in a TVB program that the city's anti-COVID measures will not deter talent and businesses from coming to Hong Kong because they would be coming here to realize their dreams for the long term. Sharon Tang reports.
Attracting top global talents and companies to Hong Kong is among the top priorities in the policy address announced last week. Chief Executive John Lee said in TVB's Straight Talk program that he wants to make Hong Kong a place where top talents can realize their dreams. He also rejected criticism that the city's anti-COVID measures, including the 0+3 quarantine policy, are deterring people from coming to the city.
When people think of coming to Hong Kong, they don't think of just coming here for 6 months. They think of developing here, having the opportunities here, allowing them to realize their dreams. We are very proactive now. We go out, knock on people's door, invite them to come, tell them how attractive, how many opportunities Hong Kong is available to you.
Lee also explained why the government is setting up the Hong Kong Investment Corporation Limited, which has been compared to Temasek, the Singaporean government's investment arm.
My intention of setting up this fund is twofold. First, we will lead in areas we believe will be of benefit to Hong Kong. We are not a laissez-faire, sit-back government. And the second thing is we have a policy for helping some industries. So if in the electronic field you are one of the top, say, 50, then of course we'll be happy to invite you here to tailor-make special plans for you.
Lee said the purpose of his plans is to let people know that Hong Kong is the place to develop their businesses and careers. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Massive outages hit WhatsApp in Hong Kong and across the world today. The world's most popular messaging platform went down at around 3 p.m. Hong Kong time. Services were restored in phases around 5 p.m. Users first encountered the issue when sending messages to their WhatsApp groups. Direct messages were not affected initially, but also went down later on. The U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said events from the recent Chinese Communist Party Congress would not bring a change in Washington's approach to China. Price also said the U.S. would welcome cooperation with the PRC where their interests align. He said that includes such issues as climate change, global health, and counter-narcotics. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said separately that U.S. President Joe Biden and President Xi had already spoken 5 times as leaders. In the latest gun violence in the U.S., an armed former student broke into a high school in St. Louis in the state of Missouri, wanting to kill people. He fatally shot a teacher and a teenage girl and wounded 7 others before police killed him in an exchange of gunfire. More from NBC News.
I have never seen anything like this.
A local news helicopter captured the fear and chaos in St. Louis as high school students leapt from a rooftop to escape a young shooter with a long gun.
I was trying to run and I couldn't run. Me and him made eye contact and I'm glad I made it out because his gun got jammed.
It happened at Central Visual and Performing Arts High School on the 3rd floor. Parents racing to school.
She's like, Mom, hurry up. They're shooting. She doesn't know she didn't know how many people it was. So I just left work and I just ran here to get her.
After the shooter quickly killed 2, authorities say police ran towards the gunfire and struck the suspect, Orlando Harris, who attended the school last year and died as officers returned fire.
The officers arrived quickly, made entry with no hesitation, went directly to the sound of gunfire, which is the expectation not only of the department but of the community as well.
7 injured were taken to hospital suffering from gunshot and shrapnel wounds. Among the dead, a beloved teacher, Jean Kuska, and a teenage girl. Survivors recounting the gunman's chilling words.
When the intruder broke into her room, then the intruder said, "Get ready to die."
Police not yet releasing a motive for the mass shooting, which happened just after 9 a.m. and was broadcast over the school's PA system.
We all thought it's a drill at first, like, okay, it's just a surprise drill, okay, we're all good. No, it's a real thing. She said over the comm, yes, this is real, there's an intruder. Please be careful. And all hell just kind of breaks loose.
Today's quick response from police comes in stark contrast to the massacre in Uvalde, where officers were blamed for systemic failures, including their slow response to engage the shooter. Parents in St. Louis grateful.
I'm glad that they went in because I was going to go in too with them.
Back here in Hong Kong, the Wine and Dine Festival will make a comeback next month, but the main outdoor event on the central waterfront will not go ahead. Instead, the Tourism Board will hand out 50,000 e-coupons worth $100 and $150 to customers who sign up on its online platform. Those with the vouchers can also redeem a free drink or snacks at more than 700 participating bars and restaurants in November. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.